Before we start things off today, we would like to give a huge shout out to our episode sponsor, Simmons Industries. Simmons is a leading manufacturer of high-quality commercial plumbing fixtures, known for their durability, performance, and innovative design. They're also proudly on multiple hotels' brands' approved vendor list and trusted for delivering reliable, long-lasting plumbing solutions that meet and exceed our quality standards here at DESIGN MUSE Podcast. Welcome to DESIGN MUSE Podcast, a podcast meant to inspire, educate, and advocate on all things commercial interior design. I am your co-host, Bridget Santos.
And I'm Melanie Hanna.
We are DESIGN MUSE Podcast.
Welcome to DESIGN MUSE. Today's episode is all about hospitality and how great design turns moments into memories. We're excited to welcome Vito Lotta with Lotta Strategic Hospitality and Jon Cakert from BKV Group. Vito is the founder of Lotta Strategic Hospitality with experiences as Vice President of Architecture and Design at Hilton, along with leadership roles at Gensler and Getty's Group. Vito brings a big picture understanding of how hospitality brands are created, evolved, and protected. His focus is on smart strategy, strong design, and long-term value. Joining him is Jon Cakert, the hospitality practice leader at BKV Group. Jon's connection to hospitality started early, growing up in the shore town outside of Atlantic City, where service was personal and experiences mattered. Today, Jon leads BKV Group's hospitality studio with a people-first approach, focused on creating places where arrival matters and memories are made. Together, Vito and Jon bring a thoughtful, real-world perspective on hospitality design, and we're excited to dive right into the conversation.
Thank you guys for coming today. We're excited to have you on DESIGN MUSE Podcast, and we are going to dive right in. This episode today is really going to be about all things hospitality. We all share a passion for the hospitality industry. We're going to really dive into what that means and the different parts of hospitality design. I always like to start us off with something kind of fun. We are going to start with a little quiz, pop quiz. Are you guys ready?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. I saw in Jon's eyes, bring it on.
Yeah, let's do it.
He's wondering what it is. So,
Pop quiz, I'm ready. I don't know what I'm ready for yet, though.
Okay. What is the number one complaint for a hotel guest in 2025? And so this is basically taking all the reviews of the hotels around the U.S. and number one complaint.
2025 is a wrinkle. I would be thinking back to things to avoid. It's got to be slow Wi-Fi.
Did you look that up?
No.
That's it? That is slow Wi-Fi is the number one complaint.
That was my number one complaint today.
Yeah.
No way.
So we're at the airport where I'm like, I can't, first of all, getting it to connect properly. So you're sitting in the hotel room and it's like, sure, you just enter your name and your room number. It's like, yeah, if the dialogue box would actually come up so I can enter it.
It's kind of interesting because that's technology, right? It's not something you see, but it does have a feeling. It's a memory of that hotel. It could be the nicest hotel in the world, but when you need to send that one email or get on the Wi-Fi for whatever, it's one of those things that's a memory that is made and an impression that's made. So let's dive into why we're here. Jon, let's start it off. You and I have had a lot of conversations about shared passion for the hospitality industry. We're grateful that you and Vito are here today. Dive into how we got to all four of us sitting here.
Absolutely. And thank you for having us both. This is a great experience. My first podcast, so I'm pretty excited. I've been listening and a fan of what you guys have been doing and excited to be here. Well, Vito and I have a shared history, probably more than a decade of design collaboration in different roles than we currently sit today. We've been working on how to collaborate in our new roles, in our new positions, and had been looking for some opportunities this past summer as we led into, here we are today, and we realized we were both going to be in Dallas at the same time, which is kind of an awesome confluence of just general travel. And Melanie, obviously with you and I, talking about this podcast often and what you guys are doing, we thought, hey, let's the three of us come together with Bridget. It was great to finally meet you. I've heard a lot about you. And talk about hospitality because, it's kind of what our passion is. So, Vito, thank you so much for agreeing to join me on this. It's been as I said, a long time that we've worked together.
It's been a pleasure. And Melanie, we've also worked together in the Waterloo.
Looking forward to being built one day. We're going to get there. But it was such an incredible experience collaborating with you and your team at Hilton. And let's dive into everyone's passion for hospitality. Bridget has an amazing story of how she came about really loving interior design. And it's actually because of her family's travels when she was a kid in hotels. So you want to tell a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my dad actually worked overseas when I was growing up. I was born and raised in Houston, but he worked overseas. So he had offices all across Europe, Malaysia, Dubai, Japan. And we would travel to go see him a lot of the time. So my mom would pack us up 3 kids. We'd get on a plane and we would go travel. So my first want of design was to design bathrooms. That's really it. I would go into every single hotel, every single space, every restaurant, wherever we were, and I wanted to see the bathroom. So when I was 5 years old, I told my parents I wanted to be a bathroom designer, which honestly, I still love what you can do in a bathroom. I think it's such a cool space to be able to design. So my love for design and hospitality design was all through travel and seeing all different types of hotels and restaurants and different places, different cultures, and kind of gathering inspiration through travel.
What about you guys? Vito?
One thing that captivated me about design was how it made you feel. And so starting with watching old movies with my mom and seeing the magic of the set design and the drama or the emotions that it brought out, and not seeing that in my day-to-day life.
That's a big deal. And it goes back to every hospitality project, that should be number one thing, especially for a designer. You're talking about the emotion that's evoked within the space. It's a little bit, not a little bit, a lot. It goes into the psychology of design and how every single layer makes a difference. And so for you to see all these sets where it has different layers and how the emotion that's evoked, that's incredible. Jon?
Yeah, I'd step back one step further back, and not necessarily about hospitality, but design as it relates to a space that you occupy. And there's going to be a common thread here that each one of us have touched on, and it's sort of our parental guidance. So when I was growing up, I had the opportunity to travel a bit more than maybe the normal kid. And I was going to Europe. I had family there, and we would go out to dinner and we would see these places. And my dad and I, you kind of be like, oh, well, why don't you go check out that? And it's not like, hey, get up and go to the restroom and see what the cool thing they did there. It's like, hey, where did John and Bob go? They've been gone for 5 minutes. They're walking around this restaurant. So there's this idea of like exploration and finding how the space comes together and seeing the next thing and absorbing it. That kind of led me to why I wanted to become an architect. And as soon as I sort of expressed that, I had to deal with, oh, John, look at that building. Oh, John, look at that building. And it kind of became the teenage version of, like, okay, let me look at that one. But what I've realized is it's now been like baked into my ethos of like exploring and looking into the next space and what that does and how that makes you feel. And quite frankly, the memory it imparts on you. So that's like hospitality in its essence to me is like making a core memory for whomever, because everybody can experience that.
Yeah, for sure. It is absolutely about core memories. So I knew growing up that I wanted to be something that was either in engineering or architecture. I actually wanted to be an architect. I didn't really realize what interior design was. Whenever I started looking at colleges is actually when I decided to go the interior design route. I had worked in restaurants since I was 16, and it was one of those things that it was something about serving others that I really loved. I was always intrigued in asking the chef back of house questions, questions, and like, where does this go? And I was intrigued by the layouts, and I was always looking at the restaurant going, oh my gosh, if we could just have this here and then here in the flow, it would be a much better customer experience. I'm in college, and about my sophomore year, I decided I was going to double major because I could have graduated early. And my dad, being in the industry, then you have to double major in something else. You got to have a backup. I chose hospitality because it was the least resistant. And plus, I love the restaurant business, right? I got to learn about hotel management during my double major, all the things. So my professor actually came to me and she said, hey, NEWH in Dallas has a scholarship. You should apply for it since you're extending your college one more year and you're doing this hospitality side of things. You should do this. It's hospitality interior designers. So I applied and I got the scholarship. That's how I ended up here in Dallas. And that's how I ended up landing at a hospitality design firm. And that's how I became in love with hospitality design. The evoked emotion, the big picture, the story. Let's dive into a little bit more about why we're here. We just talked a lot about our shared passions. Jon, you want to start us off on why we're here and get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it dovetails right back into that story I just told, which is a kind of my personal passion for exploring a new space. So here I am, been in the profession almost 20 years, and I'm a professional designer, but I'm a semi-professional traveler. And in doing so, each new city that I get to visit, I look for an opportunity to find the 4 cool places to visit, whether that's the cocktail bar that always comes with the nice hotel, or it's the nice hotel that happens to have a rooftop. The best way to do that, honestly, is with a fellow traveler. And I've had colleagues that have shared that passion with me over the years. And it's been wonderful to experience a space with them and just visit these places that stick with you. To one in particular that is kind of always my first thought when I think about how you can bring different synergies of great hotels together. And so the Chicago Athletic Association is one of my favorites. To me, it's like quintessential Chicago. It's like, it's masculine, but it's got these feminine touches. It's massive. It's cinematic. You're from Chicago, Vito. You've been there? Yeah? You familiar with the property? What do you think?
Extremely familiar with the property.
Okay. It's so cool. Great place to stay, but better place to visit.
So I've walked every square foot of that property, which is very complex, to say the least. So there's beautiful historical parts that they feature today. And there's aspects that were sort of back channel. I mean, it's almost like prohibition back channel passageways that you go through. It's very complex. It's a beautiful property. It's well themed all the way through.
When you're starting to talk about experience and these different journeys is an amazing word. It's one of the things that we use a lot just for anybody's career, how they experience a space. It's really individualized, right? It's like art. It's subjective. For hotels, one of the biggest challenges from a designer standpoint is making sure that we're creating and crafting spaces that feel different at different times of day, that they're layered. It's for everyone. There's something for everyone. It's amazing to break down hospitality design in that manner and start to think about these different areas. And Vito, I would love for you to talk a little bit about when you were at Hilton and you were having some opportunities to redefine what that looks like for the brand.
When designing public spaces, first challenge you usually have is getting everybody on the same page. So when you would show up to a hotel property, the first thing you're confronted with of people going, finally, we're going to do something here. We're going to renovate. And everything that the ops team is engaging with are things guests don't recognize. So their mentality right away is we need to have something easier to clean, something better flow, and with regards to directly the operator side. And so wanting to open their mind up to the perspective of the guest side, we had to help them take a moment and create characters as an amalgamation of different guests and say, well, from their perspective, what is the journey like? Going through that exercise and creating certain characters and having them draw upon their experience of serving guests and helping their guests through challenges or being able to vicariously look at their guests celebrate opportunities, we would create these characters and say, for that character, let's go through the journey. And then we would also say, okay, that character has a different journey depending on the purpose of travel. If they're here on business and they're traveling by themselves, their journey through the property is going to be different than if they're here with a team or if they're here with a good friend or family member to go through the hotel. Their purposes are different. Are they coming through the public space if it's a matter of first arrival? They walk in the door and it's just like orientation, made the right choice. this is great, or where's the restroom? From the team member side, their ability to recognize and go, this person's kind of lost. You help this person. That person needs to find the restroom. I'll help them. The dynamics of both users to come to that end. That's a way of approaching the mentality of design.
It's very interesting hearing it from a brand perspective too, because it's so important to think about not just your front of house, but your back of house experience, but it's also who you hire is a direct reflection of your brand to other people. So it would be, in this case, it's your guest. If you don't have someone there that's able to help and assist and be able to quickly identify, then that's a direct reflection on your brand or if someone's going to come back or not.
Another layer of that is it's not just like you as a traveler. What is your persona different during different types of trips? Or is this your first time coming in the hotel, or are you returning from a meeting? The other thing is people have the mentality often that it's a hotel. So people's journey is I come in, I check in, I go to my room. What about the people come to the hotel that never are going to go to a guest room? They're coming to meet somebody for a drink in the lobby. They're coming to hang out, meet a friend in the lobby, and sort of co-work and have this be their third space. They're coming for a conference event. They're coming for the spa experience. It has nothing to do with going into a guest room.
I will tell you, as an interior designer, when I'm working on those renovation projects, one of my favorite things to do is to act as if I'm a first-time guest. I will actually go plop myself in what I think should be a heavily populated area, just people watch. Before we do the renovation, it's a really important part because it really gives us the opportunity to do our research on how the space is being utilized or not being utilized. And maybe it's something simple.
It is simple from a certain perspective, and the perspectives are different. And to Vito's point, as it relates to having certain folks in a room and the operator's perspective is going to look at it in a certain way, and it's going to be the only way to look at it because that's how they're going to execute at their highest ability. From a designer standpoint, maybe there's an aesthetic focus, or from a developer standpoint, it's just simply kind of an ROI. It's important to have a well-rounded perspective in the room, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a little bit of more of my upbringing. So I grew up just outside of Atlantic City, a casino town, and it is a small community, and it truly is a service-oriented realm where everybody understands the importance of a strong handshake and a kind of a welcome, smile or a welcome, eye contact. But it's also about brass tacks of, let's make this work. So I chat with one of my closest friends who has since gone on to now he's the general manager of a couple properties in Midtown New York, and we'll talk about design. He's like, "No, man, you can't do that. Like it's too much stuff to move around. My housekeepers, we got to turn the room over. You can't do that. You got to simplify." I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's going to be memorable if we do this or that." So meeting in the middle of these two synergies is kind of an important part of the design element, and to tie this to a situation where Vito and I have worked together. So we've worked on two properties. We've worked on a number, maybe 5 or 6 at this point, but 2 in particular where the operator was engaged in the design process. One of my favorites is a boutique style property. So this we did just a few towns over in Hill Country, Texas, in Bernie. This was a passion project for the developer. The welcome moment was everything. It was the walk-in, it was the food and beverage, it was the lobby, and it all was the same thing, and all somehow functioned differently in a good way. But you and I kind of worked on that years ago, and that's kind of one of my favorites. It was a DoubleTree brand, but it truly it kind of took on a life of its own, and just feels every bit Hill Country.
That ownership group was unique. They had a lot of heart, a lot of passion. They cared about everybody on the team. They cared about their guests. They brought a true sense of hospitality to the project.
That was my first project truly working with you kind of one-on-one or in a direct role. But I had heard the Vito, the Vito factor coming into it. And it was, just prepare for a couple extra meetings and a couple extra design options. And let's make sure this guy make sure he's happy, right? And what came out of was a better product for having you on board. It cost us maybe a couple extra dollars to study things a couple different ways, but I couldn't be more proud of that project, and it's certainly credit to you and your team at Hilton.
Well, credit to you and your team, because what I've found surprisingly is working on literally thousands of projects. I was with Hilton for 15 years, VP of Architecture and Design, and oversaw 5 brands, helped create 3 of them. In the midst of all that, you get to work with a wide range of design firms. And one of the things that stood out to me is if you don't challenge the thought process and say, yeah, okay, I see it that way, but let's look at it a few different angles and challenge everybody. Challenge the client, your owner, your operator, developer. Challenge it from the brand side, even challenging it internally. Challenge the designers saying, let's look at it a few different ways and what ifs, and keep changing that hat. And so the point I was going to make is what stood out is that design firms with the highest level of talent had the lowest ego.
Well, it's all about collaboration, and it's not about one person having the best idea in the room. It's about that spark of creativity. It's about coming together and throwing out these ideas and challenging. I like that word. It sounds kind of a little stern. Sometimes you have to be the disruptor and you have to throw out those ideas. And that's what sparks other people's creativity. It ignites it, is what I like to call it.
Say, okay, you're at the table for a reason. You're super talented. You're great ideas. The team members that are on the brand side, we would work on thousands of projects.
Thousands.
Because everything is like putting a little bit of spin on the ball. Like you see how they're wobbling, you help them get steady, you spin them, and then you go to the next one.
Yeah.
You're trying to work on a large volume of projects. When you do a large volume of projects, you get exposed to so many solutions, failures. It could have succeeded if, and so you want to pay that forward.
For sure.
So then when we look at a project, we're like, okay, I want your solution to win. Let me inform you some of the risks and concerns with that. We've seen that together.
Bridget, I want to go to something you said early on about your love for bathroom design, because it's weird to think this way, but brands I've found have more valuable insight about what to do in the public restroom or what to do in the guest room, bathroom than anything else. It's just because
it's the watch, Swiss watch.
It's like an easy point of value engineering or easy point of failure. So I'm just curious if you have any like favorite public spaces, public bathrooms that you go to around the world.
I had an amazing opportunity to go to Annabelle's in London. Have you ever heard of that?
Yes.
It is a private club in London, and basically they took an old brownstone, turned it into a multi-level food and beverage, bar, restaurant, hospitality venue. There's no guest rooms there, right? So it's a private members club, and you go in and it's insane. But the bathrooms are very interactive. It's kind of a fun time to go to the bathroom. And there's so many bathrooms in the space, you can go explore different bathrooms. But I mean, one I went in, it was a full alligator sink cut out of a block of stone, and that was the sink basin. Really quirky, fun, interactive ways to go to the bathroom, and also those Instagrammable moments, right? So people going to the bathroom and taking photos. You can't take photos in the club at all, but you get away with kind of taking photos in the bathroom. It's kind of like a little sneak that people go to and hang out in the bathroom. You were talking about how much experience you have and how many projects you've been on. And I would be interested, what would you tell yourself years and years ago? Like the Vito who was starting and getting
the architect,
into... Right, exactly. You've talked about all your accomplishments and the brands and everything that you've created, but what would you tell yourself?
Such a complex question. Went to the route of architecture with always a passion for the interior design side. And in hospitality, many of the strongest hospitality interior designers are also architects. So that was that path. I ended up going into healthcare by default of a recession and learned a ton about the technical side of it, and a ton about how to keep a building operating and functioning. You don't shut the hospital down while you're renovating. So getting that going. So when that translated to hospitality, then that's when I felt I caught the gear. To answer your question, when I switched to the brand side, there was so much reveal that I did not know that was eye-opening, which made me a better designer. And it was 2 things I learned. One is the aspect of the other side of the table better, so that I can inform designers to help them be better designers, which is where my passion is helping designers be better designers. But I was also shocked from inside the brands, what they didn't understand to some extent the world of us as a designer. Larry Traxler had recruited me, and he was saying, well, we need to rework the design review and approval process. And I go, well, what's the current process? And he goes, well, let me have you talk to the person who's departing Hilton and understand the process. After spending an hour speaking with her, and I go back to Larry, and he goes, so what do you think of the process? And he was brand new to Hilton as well. I go, there is no process, period. So introducing the idea, which was, as you would say, pretty straightforward. I said, why don't we start with ideation, visioning? That cascades after everybody buys into conceptual design, schematic design, design development, and then essentially CDs and specs, which obviously Larry was like, yeah, I'll just flow chart it so we can socialize that to the other departments. The other departments were not used to that approach. They said, well, this thing you made up, conceptual design, schematic design, design development. It's like, I didn't make that up.
You're like, it's not rocket science.
It's just a process that the industry follows. But the problem is there was siloing of different departments. And the benefit I saw is that when Larry Traxler came in to start leading it, it started breaking down those layers of silos. And then everybody goes, well, this makes sense. Why weren't we doing that all along?
Yeah. Well, and it's, again, going back to disrupting certain things. And then that's how you end up in a better product, right?
Right.
Yeah. So question for the group here. As the only non-interior design focused person in the room, all these processes we put in place and what you just described with how we would move through a typical project, they come with decisions along the way that are presented to us as designers that have a cost to it, they have a dollar figure to it. And I like to look at this with the lens of a boutique hotel, right? Something that is not massive in scale. It's something that, it has an the overused term, perhaps authenticity, an attachment to its local surroundings, and all those things that you want to layer into the design have a cost to it. So where, as designers, can we, stand firm and say this is going to be a true return on investment, Mr. Owner? Because ultimately, we're contractually obligated to serve at the best of the people who hired us, and we want to do that well, and we want it to be a successful project. But where are those decisions for ROI, and where in each of your views can you get smacked in the face in a good way with it? Like what's the moment for you when you walk into a great the great hospital? Is it a great bathroom, or is it the scent that that you're hit with that So what are those for each of you, if I could ask?
The return on investment is our duty as designers to say, we're going to design in layers. There are some things in the spaces that are very temporal. They might be so temporal that the guest walks out with them. Like it's a pillow. It's a throw that somebody decides they're going to use as a shawl and walk out the door. Those moments can be very fun, playful, experimental. They could be colors that are in and out. They could be patterns that are in or out. There's no life to them. Then you get all the soft goods, which are replaced in 7 years. So they've got to be relevant for 7 years. They've got to be relevant design-wise for 7 years, but they also have to durably hold up for 7 years. Then you have case goods, they're 14 years. You're not going to get a return on investment if you have to replace them in less time.
Vito, you talked about a little bit earlier, some of the best designers don't have an ego, right? So I always say a successful project for the client is a successful project for us. I think cutting that ego out of the room is huge. I think experience is huge. You've talked a lot about speaking to management group that's actually seeing the guests day to day, taking those kind of looks and nods on what's actually happening, what's being used, how things are functioning. And when it comes to ROI, I think a lot of it's, dropping your ego, making sure that you're remembering what's best for the project, pushing things that you feel strongly in that are going to set you apart from something else, and then really listening to the whole team together and making sure you're servicing for that folk.
Right. I think there's a missed opportunity for most design firms, and that is you're so narrowly defined in what does the client want? What's the scope of work? How am I going to deliver it? How am I going to deliver something that I'm passionate about, that I enjoy, that I'm proud of portfolio-wise, but then how's something I'm going to be able to deliver that's going to fit their budget? How am I going to deliver something that I can deliver with the ridiculously low fees that I have and not enough hours to spend doing design on it. You're challenged with so many things with that. You never stop to ask the question, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And I encourage always to start from that position of, okay, what's the scope? And then the question after that is, but why? Why is that the scope? And that's something that I believe wholeheartedly. Whenever I work on a project and we start, you sort of glance at the scope as a loose idea. 15 years, I've had 100% success rate is if you come back and go, we think we should do this, using a buy-in, but people immediately going, well, that makes a lot of sense. But 100% of the time, everybody will agree on what's a better solution than the static PIP, because PIPs are created by a chain of people who typically don't have imagination. There's somebody who's great at going on property and discovering everything that is short of the checklist of either conditions or standards, but they're not the vision of what could be. This is what you bring to the table.
Well, I think there's a sensitivity to that scope of work and kind of bringing it to, or notching it up to a degree, or bringing it back into a higher level of relevancy in its segment, right? Mm-hmm. When we talk about, what you just kind of described is maybe a PIP with, that could be a home run, right? It's a property that exists kind of in its own potential complacency that could be elevated to something truly special. PIPs in general, I think they each have their place for actually the returning the cost of dollars.
What I was exposed to when I came on, as some designers would say, the dark side, that was how the PIPs actually were created. So what happened is you have a guy, man, woman, who's walking the property, and the first thing is these are in bad conditions. Check, check, check. These are past their use date, as in, like carton of milk has a date on it. It's like it's past 7 years, it's past 14 years. Check, check, check. Things don't align with standards. It starts out as a thoughtfully produced PIP, and then it goes to somebody else who is trying to streamline it down to common standard repeatable language. And then it goes to somebody else who has to negotiate with the owner. And that's in that negotiation part where things just get cattywampus. And that's where things get lost. And what's missing is if you come up and go, well, we're designing something, but if we're going to do this part, what's adjacent to it that's being ignored? We should address them both at the same time. We don't have the money to do that. Okay, well, what else is on the PIP, Mr. Owner, that you really think is stupid that you didn't want to do? Well, I don't want to do this twice on every floor up the building. Let's trade this in for something that people will actually recognize and appreciate.
I wonder how often PIPs include fundamental fixes of guest complaints. So going back to your first question, I didn't think the Wi-Fi question was actually going to be correct. I actually thought it was going to be something related to the guest bathroom. The biggest hurdles that as we design projects are make sure you get the basics right in the guest room, because there's so many things that can be laid out perfectly, but just one placement of a drain underneath the shower head with a slow drip all of a sudden has a ting to it.
Oh yeah.
Or a nightlight under the vanity that goes off in the middle of the night.
I wanted to circle back to your question about boutique hotels.
Yeah.
We kind of went down a rabbit hole of talking about PIPs and improvements and things like that. Vito, you mentioned what is the why? It is the vision, the big picture vision. And again, I love storytelling. It is that story behind it. Everything should focus back to those brand pillars and that vision of that project. Whenever you're looking at why boutique hotels stand out a lot more maybe than a brand, they end up being a little bit more memorable, is because it's not a formulaic thing. You experience the spaces in such a way, and it's down to the art. It's down to the layers.
You have to have the budget and the wherewithal to holistically bring everything into harmony. And so often it's parts and pieces. Where these boutique properties, you have a holistic control over what it is. John, I know you have a passion for these. What are some of the properties that you recommend touring?
New York. Just New York. That's not fair to the rest of the country because there have been some properties scattered around in different cities that have captured that lightning. New York, I think, is maybe, where it began in terms of what a boutique hotel could be. The Ludlow is one of my absolute favorites. It's quintessential Lower East Side. It's a small property, and you walk in, and everything just feels deeply layered.
If you were to sketch it in your mind right now from memory, what view, what are we seeing in that view?
There's a couple things on the first level in the lobby that stick out to me. But if I'm positioning myself, it's kind of the answer to where would you sit? Where would you sit if you had to X? If you had your cocktail, or if you had your laptop or your coffee, and there's a spot that's kind of backed up into the corner where you have the front door and the check-in desk to your left, and on your right you just have this glazed wall with an interior courtyard and atrium, all covered in greenery, and you just sink into this like beat up, in a great way, leather couch.
Distressed.
But then you're looking out and you see this small service bar in front of you, which you don't even know if it's open or not. It's just a couple seats, but it's like the perfect size to feel like they're probably going to serve you something, or they're not. You're not like sitting in a restaurant. And then everything's in front of you. Everything's happening in front of you. It's just, it feels like a really cool apartment.
Yeah.
That you probably would never be able to live in New York, but it feels like that's like what it should look like in a movie. So that's one of my favorites. There's others that I can go on forever.
The Chelsea?
The Chelsea's a great one. Sounds like you have a passion for that one.
I literally was walking, and for some reason I paused and looked to my left, and it was the Chelsea. And I'm like, I've never been there before. And I just walked in. And it's beautifully designed, and then ran into somebody else I knew serendipitously. So yeah, it stood out for that.
Good ones in Brooklyn too. The Williamsburg is one of my favorites. It's taken on a new life, and you enter in at a grade level, obviously, but everything's sort of down. So there's a kind of a winding exterior courtyard that you can occupy, again, with a coffee, or you can get service out there. But you're kind of walking down in what feels like the foundational arches of an old existing property. And it's just again, depth, layering, lighting. That's a go-to for me as well. Recommendation.
So that property ironically looks like an adaptive reuse, but it's a new build. I think one thing that's common between a luxury hotel and a boutique hotel is the ability for a relationship between the team that is serving the guests and the guests. So there's an interaction. With luxury, it could be a larger property because they have a larger ratio of guests to team members. Full service or focus service is far less. It's hard to have that engagement. With boutique, it's almost like the extreme example, that'd be almost like a bed and breakfast, where there's this bonding between the host and the guest. Boutique hotels can set up moments where there is a truly joyful interaction between team members and guests. It's hard to do at scale. So when you have a 400 to 600 key hotel and they're understaffed at the front desk and the on-queue computer system is wreaking havoc, that the poor person behind the desk can't understand why the screen is not delivering the information they need, the guest is getting angry. It's very hard to do things at scale. When you have a boutique hotel and you have it smaller, where you can slow down and you check somebody in and get to know their name. So it's the nurturing moment. You just can't get that.
That's your return on investment, right? Is the ability to train and support your staff to be able to do that, right? To not feel that they're chained or saddled behind the desk has allowed them to come out and say hi to Miss Mel.
Yeah, it goes into that philosophy. The new luxury is being treated as a person, being recognized, being that interpersonal connection, that moment, honest and not being stage set up, is what's missing at scale.
For sure. This has been really insightful, really incredible conversations. Have you guys ever thought about writing any kind of article or publication or putting some of these ideas on paper? Because I'm inspired sitting here listening to you guys. You guys ever thought about that?
Yeah, a little bit. So these properties that I kind of go to in each city, and I have a slew of photos, right? They live on my phone, but they get cataloged on a server somewhere. And I try, like on the plane ride home or just after I file them, I try to write down like 5 things for each property. Like, what are the 5 things? And it's the good, the bad, and the ugly. But yeah, I've thought about writing on something like that. It's an interesting premise. It's fun.
Does writing come natural to you?
I have been called verbose.
Is that something that is a passion for you?
Yeah, it has been. So it depends on the topic, right? And I think I could write at length on hospitality and enjoy it. But yeah, no, that's something to think about. That'd be fun.
And I think if you were to put your thoughts to pen, I think people would be interested in reading it.
Thank you. But hold on. You got a co-author. You got to be in it to win it with me on that.
I'm not a writer. Listen, I'll fan the flames from the side
right.
here. If you're going to write, so who are you writing to? Who's your audience?
It's a good question. I think I'm writing. It's the two different answers for that. So I think if I was to write to somebody, I'm almost writing to the property. It's like it's a love letter, right? It's a love letter to the property. It's a love letter to what they do right and what they what to take away from it. So often we find good precedents of projects, and we carry that to our owners, and we print out pictures and say, look at this. This is what we're trying to describe. This is a mood. This is a vibe. So I think if I was an audience beyond the kind of an ode to the property itself, it would be to developers, and to try to extract to the best of my ability, what's the secret sauce that makes one property feel right and one property feel like they could have done something a little bit more. So
I'm imagining Mel goes in the future to check into a boutique hotel, and she sees this beautiful leather-bound folder and opens it up, and there's this short little essay or love letter to the property that she reads. And that she finds that interesting, and then she goes to a source that she sees a variety of these letters that you've written to a variety of properties that is in a central location.
That's a cool idea.
You could do a few of these.
that would be fun. That'd be fun. My oldest son, he's a 10-year-old. He's enamored with Hamilton. The series of essays is it's like a line from the musical. It's like, and he wrote these series of essays, and Alexander Hamilton wrote the other 59. It's like all about the Federalist Papers. So that might be a little bit of an aspiration to be featured on each of these properties. But I like the idea of putting pen to paper.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for coming today. Before we end and wrap up, so our podcast is all about inspiring, educating, and advocating, and we've talked on a lot of that today. Advocacy is a huge thing. So for the hospitality industry, if you had all the money in the world and could help advocate for something within the hospitality industry, what would that look like? What would you do to help the hospitality industry or hospitality design?
The answer to the first part, which is absent of the design, is what seems as a reoccurring hurdle in the post-COVID world is staffing and labor, and that's a problem that we'd love to be able to solve for our owners and for our operators. But the solving of that is creating support programs that make hospitality a profession. And I guess I go back to my upbringing in the community that I lived in, which was hospitality centric. It was a service industry. There was a seasonality to it. I don't know, find a way to allow for the great front desk clerk to be able to be trained and have the ability and wherewithal to come around and greet you on a personal level.
Yeah. For the team members, I'd love to see a better balance of, and this is hard on the ROI. The ROI is, owners are stretched to try and reduce the number of team members working at any one time into, especially in a union environment, you'll see them redefining roles, which literally has even affected designs I've worked on. So we can't design it this way and I go, well, this is the smartest way to design it. And they go, yeah, until you factor in the team member and their definition of their position and what their hourly rate is. So if you redesign it this way, I save on hourly rate. I'm speaking in terms of the other person saying that because I don't support that at all. But yeah, so there's wanting to pay the team members a living wage and giving them the right volume of coworkers that they're not overwhelmed. I think it's a great profession, but we need to care for those team members.
I love the fact that you two are coming from two different perspectives, but also have a very commonality to your answer with that. One of the things that really came to mind with the education side of it is there's a lot of career paths that a lot of people don't realize they can go down. The fact that you have worked on both Vito design architecture side of things and then the brand side, and now you're consulting. It just really shows everyone the possibilities that you can take with your career with design or architecture. The biggest question that Bridget and I get is, okay, we're in this profession and people get to about 15 years and they either get out or they're in it, and it's kind of a combination. They might be
Mhm.
boomerangs to the industry. Knowing that there's opportunities to take your career and take that into your design career, your architecture career, and go work on the owner side and learn so much is really cool. It's very inspiring.
One thing that comes to mind on your question too, from the design side, I've always been frustrated for design firms that they're in the business design and they're undervalued. So a design firm comes to the table and like, we're going to give you a design solution that's going to make you, the client, whether it be the owner or the operator, successful, which is going to make you money. And then they want to turn around and pay the lowest possible fees to do so. You're burning the midnight oil with not enough fees to do things right.
It doesn't make sense. We need to change that.
What I do, I did that some when I was with Hilton, but I absolutely do now, is now I can build teams. I create a short list and I go to the owners and I say, well, here's kind of a long short list. Let me tell you who's on the list, why they're uniquely selected to be on the list for your project. They have different personalities, different talents, different capabilities. They're all qualified to be on your project. But let me run through those and look at their portfolio. And let's narrow that down to a tighter list. And then we're not going to send them an RFP. We're going to interview them. And if you like them, and if you resonate with them, then they get an RFP. Now, when you like those on the short list and you get the proposals back, do not make your choice on who's got the lowest fee. Use that as information, saying if I triangulate from at least 3 different proposals, I know that the fee range is probably in this ballpark. I now can drill down with better questions like, well, how did you build the structure of the team? I love the beautiful portfolio. Who on this team worked on those projects? The people who worked on those projects may not even be at that firm anymore. So then you get to know them better. And then you get to the point where you go, you know what? It's come clear to me. This is a firm I want to hire.
I love that approach.
Then talk about what the fees ought to be. And the fees might be more than their proposal. Because when you learn from looking at the triangulation of the other fees, if they just happen to be the lowest fee, why is there such a range? Like, you know how hard it is to figure out how many hours it's going to take to appease you? Is that the firm you want to hire that had the lowest fee? And all you need to do is double their fee to get the right fee. Because the one that was double the fee, they put it the right amount in for the whole thing. Go with the one you like, move their fee up.
This makes my heart so happy to have this conversation because I think a lot of times that it is fee driven and they're coming in and they're getting the lowest fee. And then it's like this trickle effect as a design or architecture firm. In order to even be on the short list of 3, you have to abide by some of that fee structure. And it's really not fair to the project. So then what happens is as the designers, we're going to do what it takes to do the job, right? So we're going to lose our butt on it just because we want to serve the client well.
You're in the business of design.
Yes.
So
yeah.
What I will tell the owner, do this. Ask them all to give you the spreadsheet. Well, at some point, you're going to say, I've got phases and I've got teams that are going to expand and contract of who's working on the project with different skill sets, different levels of experience, different billing rates. And you see at the end of every week and the end of every phase, I need this much billable time to cover their costs. Show the spreadsheet and go, this is where our numbers come from. What service do you not want us to do? And I advise my clients, I said, in the RFP, require them all to submit that spreadsheet. And they're going to have different numbers and they're going to have different billing rates and they're going to have different hours and some work more efficient than others. But at least you get to have that conversation deeper.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's the transparency of it is something that I think design groups are there to offer, but there's some reluctance to it. One of the healthy things about the way BKV operates is that we'll open our books, like take a look at how we're pulling this together. And it gives such a comfort, we found, on the owner side, not because they want to see it. It's just they see how we're thinking.
It humanizes you.
Absolutely.
It sees you not as just a logo that's got a certain reputation. It's like we are an assembly of team members working together at at different parts of our career path, at different billing rates. So it humanizes that. And then not only do they get to understand you better that way, they get to understand each of the other competitors that way. And you can't win every project. So let's say minimum 3 proposed so you can triangulate the fees. Just odds alone, if you're all absolutely equal, you win 33% of the time. If you don't win the project, win the heart of the client so you get the next time they're looking to staff up.
Yeah, that's a great message. And I think that's what I've always felt is the greatest strategy for winning, is to have a face-to-face conversation. and we appreciate the owners that give us the opportunity to just talk it through. And it's their project, it's their passion. We just want to help it come to life.
Right.
And at the end of the day, relationships are the key to all of it. And I think one of the biggest things for our listeners, just to kind of reiterate really, is relationships take work. It's not a one and done situation. And Vito, when we were working on the Waterloo Park Hotel, I wasn't your main contact, but we were able to still build a relationship through that project, right? And then we get to reconnect, and dear friend now, I've seen you as if you're my friend,
Yes.
The thing is that relationships take time to build trust, and we will wrap up on that. Thank you guys for your time.
Yes, thank you guys for being here.
Thank
Love
you.
chatting.
Yeah,
Until
thank
next time, toodaloos.